Dude, look at the amount of symbiotic blooms that I have right now. Literally everyone has like 3 stacks on them. What the? Let's go. We're trying out the Wildstalker Resto Druid. A bit of a safe build. I'm not sure if this is going to be the way to go. We're messing around with double germs. Again, I end up using my Convoke defensively just because I'm using Implant again. I'm trying out to see how many symbiotic blooms I'm gonna get. For the people who don't know, I'm testing Floodgate again. I was testing out Dawnbreaker, but Dawnbreaker is just buggy as hell. There's many classes that just don't work with Dawnbreaker properly. Again, the ships are so buggy, man. But for the people who don't know, Wildstalker, the tier set bonus, it's all about symbiotic blooms, bursting growths. Symbiotic blooms have a ton of synergy with like vigorous creepers. The more symbiotic blooms you have, the more healing you do on a person. Casting regrowth with clear casting, grows symbiotic blooms. You have a bunch of passive healing. You have a bit of random healing associated with this. This is what Wildstalker is like, right? But you're just pumping. You're just like just look at my grid 2 throughout the whole dungeon, and in terms of how many symbiotic blooms I have. In terms of the more symbiotic blooms I have, the more healing that I'm doing, blah blah blah. Resto Druid OP, right? And this is the nerfed version. They nerfed this tier set because before the nerf, you could make an argument that this tier set was probably one of the most, or oh, I'm dead. You could make an argument that this tier set was arguably one of the most busted things in the game. Let's get out of the root, man. We're shapeshifting. We're not plebbing here. I'm getting... Look, I'm using Convoke defensively. This is applying symbiotic blooms. This guy has 3 stacks of symbiotic blooms. This guy has 2 stacks. The more stacks I have, Vigorous Creepers is going to give you... For the people who don't know, I don't really want to show it here, but Vigorous Creepers is going to give you additional healing. So the more symbiotic blooms you have, the more healing you're doing, which is actually an absurd amount, because in Mythic Plus specifically, I can't do melee damage here. In Mythic Plus specifically, you're going to be stacking a lot. Look, this guy has 4 stacks, this guy has 2 stacks, like, it's wild, man. It's wild, and it's actually in line. In my opinion, it's in line with what Resto Druid is, because it's all about those hottie hots, right? On top of that, every single healer got buffs to their, or most of the healers got buffs to their big cooldowns. So Tranquility is now doing way more healing in 5-man content. Revival is doing way more healing. Healing Tide Totem. Blizzard basically said, hey, we get it. You have these big cooldowns, but you might not pick them in Mythic Plus because, again, you don't have 20 targets or whatever. We're gonna make it worth your time. We're gonna make it worth your time. So tranquil. So like, I'm pretty sure most of the healers out there will try to squeeze in or include their big cooldowns in Mythic Plus now, because after these changes, we'll have to see, because it all depends on your talents as well, how easy it is to pick up, and blah blah blah, all those things. Oh, this guy might die here. Let's go, man. This guy is getting wrecked. Holy moly. Again, I'm playing a super defensive build with like Germination, which I'm not sure how it's going to feel like, because I do miss Season 2 tier set. Remember, Season 2 tier set gave you a bunch of free rejuvenations. On top of that, it gave you... I need to... On top of that, it worked really well with Abundance. I'm not sure if Abundance is going to be the way to go. I'm not sure if Double Germination build is going to be the way to go. This is all just practice. I'm playing an extremely safe build. This is Pugs. This is PTR. Safety is... I'm using Convoke here. I'm using Implant. Implant is going to... When I'm using Implant with Convoke, if I use Convoke defensively, all of the Swiftmans, all of the Wild Growths, they're being shot out, right? Are going to be applying symbiotic blooms, which in turn gives you more healing. But think about this, like in terms of gameplay wise, how different is this from like Season 2? Sure, you're probably going to pay a bit more attention to like clear casting, making sure you get clear casting, making sure you use regrowth with clear casting to, you know, enhance your symbiotic bloom uptime and things like that. But I think one of the big issues that you need to talk about with Resto Druid, or actually I don't want to say it's an issue, but playstyle. You're still relying a lot on regrowths and stuff like that. You're still applying, like for example, Wild Growth with this build. It just feels like it does nothing, man. It feels like Wild Growth does nothing. Ooh, I'm a bit danger here. It feels like I'm pressing Wild Growth to apply HOTS, and with Implant, I'm getting that Symbiotic Bloom spreadage, right? Again, I'm not sure if Implant is going to be the way to go. But yeah, the gameplay of Druid, I mean, there's a lot of people who like it or don't like it, you know, regrowth power and stuff like that. Blizzard has experimented with what it means to be a Resto Druid for a long time. Gameplay in Dragonfly changed a lot when it comes to the War Within. I think Wildstalker tier set, even after the nerfs, still feels quite strong. I think, generally speaking, you still have the same strengths. Which is not a bad thing. Most people will tell you like, oh, Resto Druid was not meta in Season 2. It's like, what? Resto Druid in Season 2 was arguably, had one of the highest potentials in terms of healing. It wasn't meta. I need to interrupt. It wasn't meta, but it has one of the highest potentials. Like, it's actually one of the biggest sadnesses for me in terms of how Resto Druid got treated in Season 2, because if you knew what you're doing... Okay, I'm gonna use Convoke defensively here. Spread that stuff. I feel a little bit scared. Let's interrupt. Nope. It'll be very interesting to see if Wildstalker will make it as a raiding build, because there are some really annoying bugs, like Flourish now extending Symbiotic Blooms is really, really annoying. Let's do some damage, boys. We'll do some damage. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm staying here. Okay, I did not set up properly here, so I'm gonna use my... Again, everyone used their defensives, to be honest, so it's not even matter, but I didn't set up properly. That's one of the biggest issues with playing Resto Druid. If you know there's going to be an intermission coming up, and you don't have HOTS rolling, you don't have your mastery stacks rolling, you're gonna have a bad time, man. Especially in the hierarchies you go, where honestly the damage is so crazy that you need to topple people in an instant almost. So if you don't have HOTS rolling, you're screwed. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that makes Druid feel significantly harder in something like... Oh, I need to run out here. Ooh, this is a lot of stuff. I need to... Again, I got my clear casting, I'm using my regrowths. One of the casts went off because I wasn't checking it. I'm not really doing a whole lot of interrupts here. There's gonna be AoE happening very soon. I'm gonna apply as many HOTS as possible right now. I do have Convoke, which I can use defensively or offensively. I'm gonna apply some bleeds as well because I want the damage. We're gonna get our light blooms on. We're gonna get our wild growth. We're gonna use Convoke defensively because that's going to apply. Again, I'm using implant, so that means I'm applying symbiotic blooms. I'm using my growths, and I mean I'm reapplying my blooms, and you just get through it, right? If you have HOTS rolling, it is very mucho easier, right? But you need to know the damage patterns, and if you don't know damage patterns, it's over, bro. In lower keys, it might not be that big of a deal. You can maybe brute force it. In higher keys, you absolutely will be caught out. If you... I'm interrupting. Oh, I'm trying to interrupt. Again, I'm not sure if implant is going to be the way to go, but dude, root network, the more symbiotic blooms you have, the more healing you do. The synergy... Okay, that sounds really cringe, but the synergy that you have with the tiers... Well, with symbiotic blooms. Bubbles! My bubbles! Dude, there's nothing that's gonna beat Resto Druid raw type of healing. Nothing. Nothing's gonna beat that. It's honestly insane.
2, 1. Dodge. Stack. AoE.
Nothing's gonna beat my boy Druid. What type of damage, God?
Stack.
What type of damage, God?
AoE.
But I basically ended up doing multiple different runs for Resto Druid. In this run, I equipped Reshi Wraps because on some of the previous runs I didn't have this. And again, I wanted to see how everything feels for healers. We did test out, you can see here, Wildstalker, and the overall healing, Symbiotic Blooms, Bursting Growth, accounts for a huge portion of your overall healing, which is so different from previous seasons. These things were nerfed this week. They were nerfed this week, so you can imagine what Wildstalker tier set was like previously. There's tons of synergy. We talked about Symbiotic Blooms with Vigorous Creepers. Symbiotic Blooms increases the healing your spells do to affected targets by 20%. This stacks. The more Symbiotic Blooms you have, Root Network works better. I talked about this throughout the whole video. I'm messing around with Implant again to get some guaranteed Symbiotic Blooms, especially when I'm casting my Convoke, because Convoke is going to cast Swiftmend, Wild Growth, and things like that. You have to remember, Implant works with Wild Growth now. And again, I talked about this. I feel like the overall healing of Wildstalker is really high. I think you can do a lot of healing. I kind of wanted to see how much my Reshi Wraps did. And you can see it here. This is one portion of this. This is another portion of it. So again, I haven't tested all the healers, but I think overall Wildstalker Resto Druid still feels very strong. The amount of Symbiotic Blooms that I have out on the party is wild. I need to test a few more other healers to see it, but I feel like it's going to be relatively hard to beat the amount of healing you can do. It is a haste. It is a healer that enjoys haste, and I feel like the amount of clicking that I end up doing is wild. I love this healer, but I also feel that I get exhausted while playing this healer relatively quickly. And that's just, that's just a gameplay thing. That's my personal opinion. But I think overall, Resto Druid healing, especially again, I've tried out Mythic Plus Mania, we'll try it out in Raid. There is a chance maybe Wildstalker will be more usable in Raid. They need to fix that Flourish bug in terms of extending Symbiotic Blooms. I think it's a blaster. I think the HVS is still very strong, even after the nerfs to the tier set, nerfs to the Wildstalker. I still think it's very strong in Mythic Plus. We'll have to see how it feels in Raid.